Are you a real estate investor and you also have a living trust? Well, then you're going to want to watch this video, because in this video, I am going to cover a critical provision you need to place into your living trust to make sure your real estate will continue to produce benefit for multiple generations into the future. All right, let's get started. All right, guys, so here's the deal. When it comes to setting up your real estate to pass on to your beneficiaries, the best way to do that is to use a living trust because it bypasses probate. Now, if you're not familiar with the living trust, where have you been? If you've been a follower of my channel, or even if you haven't been, go and search for living trust. I have plenty of videos on that topic, and you'll understand the importance. But I assume if you're listening right now, you want to know what you should be doing with your trust to make sure that your real estate remains protected. Because here's the thing. When it comes to real estate investing, one of the common reasons I hear from people as to what they want to do with their investments is to create a legacy. That is, ensure that it'll continue to benefit multiple generations. I know with our estate planning that we set it up that not only will the assets that we've acquired, the real estate, pay out to ourselves and then to our children, but their children and their children's children and on down the line. Now, in order to make that happen, you got to set your living trust up with this very specific provision. Otherwise, it'll fail. Now, more importantly, you want to make sure that real estate is going to be there so that if your children go through a divorce or your grandchildren go through a divorce or are involved in a lawsuit, that you won't lose any of these assets. It's really simple to do if you know how to set it up the right way. So let me just show you what I'm referring to here. So when it comes to a living trust, as you recall, we've talked about this in many things. It's just a box, right? So a living trust is a box. It doesn't do anything until you passed away. The key is you want to make sure that box is funded with all of your real estate. Now, there's different ways to do this. If you own property directly in your own name because you haven't set up an LLC yet, what the hell are you doing? Okay, you need to get an LLC set up, but I'm going to give you a pass right here. So if you own it in your own name and you've created a living trust and you need to deed it into your living trust, deed it in the name of the living trust. Now I don't like that. The way if you watch my videos, you know what I tell people all the time. You want to hold your real estate through limited liability companies. And so most of my structures, when you watch my videos, they look like this. You'll have real estate LLCs all owned by a holding limited liability company. So I make sure that this holding LLC right here is in the name of my trust. By putting that holding LLC in there, then it pulls in all of those other LLCs and the property that it owns. Now, I like holding it through LLCs, not only for the asset protection benefit that the LLCs provide, but also for ease of transferability, meaning that when my wife and I have passed on and our living trust is ready to do what it's supposed to do, and it has those critical estate planning, real estate provisions in there, it's really simple for our trustee to do what I'm about to show you. Because when it comes to transferring LLC, all you have to do is sign a piece of paper to transfer it. It's not like when you own property directly in the name of the trust, you have to go through and deed property, and those are more expenses that are involved, and possible transfer fees is well involved with that. Now, when you got an LLC, you completely avoid that. So I just dropped something on you here. If you've got a living trust set up and you don't yet have your LLC in the name of your living trust, make sure you get it transferred into the trust, or what I'm about to show you will not work when you pass away. You have to transfer it in. And the simplest way to do that is via an assignment of interest. Okay, so what are we talking about here when I'm saying you need this provision in your living trust if you're a real estate investor? So if you want to make sure you can pass on your estate and you can hold it as long as possible for your future heirs and provide them income, but at the same time protect the assets from aggressive creditors and divorcees, this is what you need to do. You set up your trust so that when you've passed away, it will create a subtrust. Okay, you're going to create a subtrust. And into this subtrust, we will allocate all of our real estate. So in my living trust, I have all of my real estate investments, these LLCs, everything there is going to be allocated down here to this trust, just like this. So all my LLCs will be owned inside of this one subtrust. Now, I'm not putting all the assets in there. And I'm not suggesting you need to do this as well, but the real estate, if you want to protect it, let's get this subtrust set up. You need a real estate subtrust. Now, the other thing, what you can do is you can create a separate subtrust over here. We call this your cash subtrust. So in this subtrust, if you have a brokerage account, maybe you have a separate LLC that you set up that holds just your investments and your savings, you can allocate those down here. And then all of that stuff, personal effects, maybe even your personal residence, that could be distributed out to your children immediately upon your passing or depending upon their age. Again, I'm not going to go into how you distribute out these assets. I've got plenty of videos that cover that. But this is what happens when people take this information and work with someone who does not understand what I'm explaining right now. I've seen this come up before. Somebody will show me a living trust and I'll have two subtrusts created where all the cash is distributed out over here and they put all the real estate over here. My first response is, the person you're working with that created this trust, I don't think they're a real estate investor, or they work with many real estate investors. And they'll say, well, how do you know that attorney doesn't work with real estate investors? Because they don't get it. Yeah, it's simple enough to allocate the property over to this subtrust for the benefit of your children, but you have to do it in a certain manner. That is, you just don't give it the LLCs. You also need to give it some cash as well. This is critical. When you create this subtrust and you say, I want all my real estate to go into here, also allocate a set sum of money. And the reason why you want to fund it with money is that with real estate, we know we have problems with it, right? We have to pay property taxes. We also know that we have CapEx that comes with maintaining our property. So you got to leave enough cash there to ensure that you can maintain that property. So maybe in this case, we allocate $200,000 in cash to go along with the real estate. Now, when you write this subtrust up, you state that that cash is to be used, held in a reserve account, all right? So you want to create a reserve account here in your subtrust because you're setting this trust up so that the income from the rentals will pay to your beneficiaries during their lifetime, but they don't get the actual physical property. You see, you can hold your portfolio in trust and give income to them. And again, you can restrict how they get the income. You don't have to give it all to them. You could say they have to do certain things, control them from the grave. I like doing that, right? I want to make sure that they're still punching the clock and being productive members of society. I don't want them to sit back and drink beer and play PlayStation all day long. So I've got some restrictions here, but if they're doing what they're supposed to do, then they're going to be getting income off of this trust. And so the money's going to be paying out to them. But I also have this reserve account. So that's key. You want to make sure your subtrust has a reserve account and it's evergreen. So you set that amount, how much you always want to have inside of there, so that you always have enough money to cover unforeseen expenses, cover the insurance and cover taxes and all that stuff. So that's got to be allocated there into that reserve account. Now with the properties themselves, right? I get it. Real estate can be fluid, that you own property here in one state and you decide, well, later on, I want to move to a different state. I want to sell an asset here and do a 1031 exchange into a property in a different state. Well, set up your trust to allow the trustee to do that. But make sure that that trustee has the buy-in of the beneficiary. So that's the next thing you got to consider there, is that you don't need to have these beneficiaries serve as the trustee of this trust. In many cases, if the kids aren't involved in real estate, they're the wrong people to choose. In fact, I need to cut a video just on selecting a trustee, and I'll do that here, and it'll come out within the next 6 weeks or so. But suffice to say is that you want to make sure that the beneficiaries have some say. So if the trustee of this subtrust right here decided they wanted to sell this property right here via 1031 exchange, so you can actually specify that if the trustee is going to sell property, the first method of sale is to find suitable replacement property, engage in a 1031 exchange, so you don't create tax liabilities for these individual beneficiaries down here. Okay, so look for a 1031. If you can't do that, then they can sell it. Now, when you talk about selling, what type of replacement property are they buying? So that's key, because you want to make sure that they're buying suitable replacement property. So you can get into details on what that looks like and what type of evaluation they need to go through in order to find that suitable replacement property. The third thing you need to focus on is, what about borrowing? Okay, so now I've got this trust set up. I have real estate inside of it, and I decide I want to take one particular asset and I want to upgrade it, improve it. I want to do a pop top. I'm going to put on a second floor, because now if I do that, I'm going to turn it into a duplex because the zoning allows me to do that. I'm going to double the value of the asset and I'm going to double the income. Great. In order to do that pop top, though, I need to take out a loan against the property to finance it, because I've got my reserve account over here. So specify in your trust document, all right, that the beneficiaries can be presented with a proposal to improve the existing rental real estate. And if they approve that, then they agree that they can get a loan against that asset. So that prevents a trustee from just, encumbering up all your real estate and making bad investment decisions, and then everyone loses money. So that's checks and balances there. So you want to make sure you have that type of provision inside of your trust document as well. And so those are 3 essential provisions, and they're much more. And we don't have the time to go through all those on this video right here, but I just wanted to get those to you right now, because when it comes to setting up a living trust for estate planning, you want to make sure that it's optimized for holding your rental real estate. And I gave you 3 key principles right there that you should consider when creating this sub-trust that flows from your existing living trust, so that real estate can continue to go on and produce wealth for multiple generations. Hey guys, if you liked the video, be sure to smash the like button. And if you want to learn more about living trust, just search my channel for Living Trust. I have a ton of videos out there on explaining the importance of this tool when it comes to estate planning. Take care.